Welcome back to the Millennium Live podcast. We are continuing our partnership series where we dive into cutting edge innovation and creativity in the world of marketing. And I'm your host, Connor Toohey. Today, we're exploring how AI will further unlock human creativity for brand marketing, a topic that's really transforming the ways brands are connecting with their audiences. Joining us is an expert on the subject. He's a leading voice in MarTech. David Shadpour, the CEO of Social Native, is here on the podcast. David, welcome to the podcast. It's really great to have you and to be speaking with you today.
Thank you, brother, for having me. I appreciate you.
Of course. And just a few topics that we're going to be exploring is going to be a lot around the exciting landscape of brand marketing associated with AI and kind of the role AI is playing and really amplifying human creativity rather than replacing it, and how it's kind of enhancing the efficiency and quality of the creative process. And and really how AI is leveling the playing field for smaller brands and those individual creators, and really the impact of democratizing content. So, would love to dive in with you, David, and to start by kind of sharing this excitement around the landscape of brand marketing that's really evolving with AI and kind of adapting and accepting AI for really the kind of the power that it has. So, what excites you the most about, especially within the last year or so, all these changes that are happening in the industry?
I would probably start by looking in the past. If you take a moment to reflect and a hindsight perspective, in our history in the development of creative, not that long ago, you would create content and then have to go and have that film developed in order to see that content at a later date. And if you wanted to make any changes or any edits, there was a very lengthy process that went into that in terms of just duration of time. And with the advent of different technologies, we today exist in a universe where you can create content and see that content in real time. So just think about how much of a shift that is. There was a time where if I were just to use my Polaroid camera, disposable camera as an example, you have a disposable camera, you wind it up, you take a picture, you take it to your local Walgreens, you wait a few days, you come back, you have a photo, and you realize, oh my God, I had my thumb covering the lens. I have no, right? That's a real story, and it's
Yeah.
not even that far in terms of time, a couple decades. Today, you snap a photo on your phone, you can see it right then and there. So that was an advent of technology. That was a shift in technology. It doesn't have the word AI associated with it, but it was a gradual shift. AI is an example of a similar shift. I'd say maybe the only caveat is that the velocity of that shift is going to be much, much faster than 2 decades, like the example that I gave prior. And with that velocity and shift, one of the primary shifts in relation when it comes to creative and specifically for brand marketing, but all creative needs in general, is the ability to do post-production work on creative. So today, if I want to do post-production work on creative, I go on various different softwares and various different ideas and many, many different overlays, and it can take several hours versus using AI tools that exist today and are getting built to be better and better on a daily basis that would do all of that on your behalf. So imagine you created one fantastic video and you can now use a tool that will create various different versions of that video for you by clicking a button. And so the way that I would think about it is like yesterday, you would take a picture and it would take time for you to see that content and see if you like it or don't like it and potentially have to then produce a new video. Whereas tomorrow, you can create content, see what it looks like in real time, which we're all accustomed to already, but then create 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 different versions of that in real time. And that's something that, has yet to exist.
Yeah, it's sort of the times of rolling back that camera. Or I mean, I just remember my mom giving me the disposable on the field trips, and then couldn't wait to stop at Walgreens and pick them up and see what we what came through the lens. Sometimes you didn't even know what you were taking a picture of. And just to know that you can see that in real time now is pretty unbelievable. It just shows you how times have changed. But kind of building on what you were talking about, David, and reflecting on the past few decades of how technology has really driven the evolution of content creation. What what pivotal moments, and you've already mentioned one of them, but what pivotal moments really stand out to you that were that a couple of changes that changed everything?
In terms of the prior shifts, yeah, I mean, I'd say probably the first and biggest is just the camera. When I was a child, the only person that could actually lift the video camera was my father. So that, you have to like put in the VHS cassette and you've got to put it up on your shoulder to videotape the birthday party. But now my 6-year-old can videotape his own birthday party, with an iPad. And so that, that's another example of how accessibility has changed in the world of creativity, where yesterday it was really only someone who could physically carry this device could be a creator. Whereas today, even a child is in a position to create quality content. And if I were to actually bring that also back to AI is, today the only person that can do a significant amount of post-production work is very much limited to people that have access to software and people who have some formal training. That may not be the future.
Well, one of the things too is that when you start bringing up AI, a lot of the conversation around, even if you're just having a base conversation, is AI is going to replace jobs. And it's going to replace my job. It's going to replace everybody's job. But I think you're pretty adamant about how AI is not replacing humans and the capabilities that humans can have. And a lot of that is creativity. So, can you kind of elaborate on how AI is not replacing human creativity, but rather kind of amplifying it, helping it? And in what ways do you see the AI transform, excuse me, how AI can really transform creative processes, especially in terms of enhancing quality and efficiency?
Yeah, I'd love to discuss this. And I agree with you, by the way. There is this overarching dark cloud in reference to AI. But if we try to break it down into two parts, the human brain, we all know, has these two primary pillars. The first is that creative engine and that spark that lives within all of us that ideates and is very, very creative. And then there's another side of our brain that is more manual, task oriented, a bit of whack-a-mole, kind of getting things done like a conveyor belt type of mind. And AI is going to be playing a very large role in that automation side of the brain, which in theory can empower us to use more of the creative side of our brains. So, and in many ways, this is like unlocking the power of human creativity, is giving us the headspace to focus our energy on our creativity and not necessarily give a percentage of our days to the manual tasks. So now let's break this down. If we go back to our example with the camera, there was a massive ecosystem and a lot of work that went into developing film. And that ecosystem doesn't necessarily exist today. With the advent of the technologies we mentioned and my ability to look at a picture in real time on my iPhone, I no longer need someone to do that. I also don't need the steps that it took and the time that it took to do those things because of this advent of technology. On the flip side of that, millions, if not billions of people are now able to create content that were not able to do it in the prior way. There's costs associated with buying those cameras. There's production costs associated with development of those things. And there just was overall friction. So with the removal of that friction, you now have a new ecosystem of people that are creative. If we shift that over to this conversation around AI, the same thing applies. If AI starts participating more in some of those tasks and in some of the post-production work, and in some of the replication of your creativity to amplify it into various different backgrounds or drops or ideas or whatever it may be, this empowers you to be more creative. You can come up with ideas. You can produce one shot and get 1,000 shots out of it. Right? That's
Yeah.
where the give and take is. Yes, there are ecosystems that will no longer exist a decade from now. That is a fair assessment that people are afraid of. I think it's inevitable. But there's another assessment, which is what opportunity does it create for for mankind? And that is very, very likely in one in which we can all be a lot more creative.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's really, there's something to be said about being able to kind of harness this technology and use it to help and sort of in more of even I'm thinking more of it, the distribution of this, but in what ways can AI really be leveraged to optimize user generated content and creator content for brands?
Yeah, fantastic. So up until now, we've been talking more AI mindset specifically around creative. But when we come to the marketing relationship with the end consumer, creative ultimately is just meant to capture the consumer's attention, relay to them the value of your product or service, and in some ways encourage them to collaborate with your brand via some sort of purchase, usage, adoption. Historically, we spoke to people through one microphone, whether it was television or newspaper. It was one message: I have this car and it's fast. And that message would go out to the masses. With the advent of the internet and social media and various different platforms and various different ways to talk to people, there has been some shifts into not doing one to many, but creating maybe more than one message that you can A/B test on the internet to see if it speaks to your target audience. But now, if you were to imagine that you can make content about your car, this car that you want to sell into the market, and with the use of AI, cut that video into 20 or 30 or 50 different narratives to speak to 50 different types of consumers, where one video speaks specifically to the surfer, and one video speaks specifically to the person that has dogs, and the other one speaks to the mom, or whatever it may be, like the nuances of your vehicle that speak to those different demographics. You have unlocked personalization. And the reality of the end consumer is that they aren't the one size fits all advertisement. And that's why so many brands have like chased virality, because they wanted something that spoke to the masses. But the truth is that I am a very unique individual. And the reason why I love my product can be different than the reason why you love that very same product. And as brands, we all know that. We all know that we cater to a market of people that use our products for a variety of different reasons. And if we can create advertisements that are A, specific to those various reasons, and then B, serve those specific pieces of content to people that that topic resonates with them, we will undoubtedly experience a higher ROI. And I want to say that most brand marketers do not disagree with this hypothesis in any way. The general question is, yeah, but how do I do that? And if we go back in time, you really couldn't do that with TV. Yes, Nickelodeon is mostly children, and like late night TV is mostly adults, and there's specific gender targeting and so on. But you didn't know nuances like Bob is into surfing. And now that we know all those things with the internet, AI can help have massive influence on content production. And then if you tie those two, or when we tie those two together, we can participate in this concept around personalization at scale.
That's a really great point, David. And one of the things I definitely wanted to mention, and I spoke about this in the intro, but it's kind of changed the game in terms of who gets to have a play and gets to have a role in brand marketing. Usually, back in the day when we were rewinding the camera to take a picture, it was top three brands had the biggest say, and those media companies kind of controlled everything we saw. But now, with the change of technology, and especially with AI, it's kind of empowering these smaller brands, individual creators, content creators, to kind of compete and get that larger audience. And you can see now, especially on social media, that this is definitely a game changer. So, in what more specific ways has AI really empowered smaller brands to have a play and sort of democratizing content that we see today?
Yeah, let's go back to the significant costs associated with access to information. Today, the larger brands have access to all tools like social listening and so on and so forth. They're fully aware of what's trending in the social ecosystem and so on and so forth. And they have the ability to go out and produce the amount of content they need to speak to these various audiences. If I'm a smaller brand, I may not have access to these tools. So outside of not having access to this data and not having access to strong production teams and so on and so forth, I'm really starting white canvas. I want to be successful. I have a good product. I don't really know where to start. You can actually today, so we're not even speaking about our future state, use AI tools to ask for guidance on a creative brief. You can ask AI tools today, what's trending on social, to go out and use that to help inspire your creative brief. Those things are available to the general public at no cost. Now, the production of that content is where I see AI really shifting in time. Because today, if you go to some of the visual AI solutions, they're not necessarily there yet to create brand new content for you. But through collaboration with creators, through the freelance economy, to go out and have someone create a piece of content for you, and then leverage AI to create 10, 20, 30 different versions of that content, you can be just as competitive as a large brand. And this is where the barrier to entry decreasing by the advent of AI and the accessibility of AI, it decreases the barrier of entry so that even a small business is in a position to take advantage of data insights and so on. And I'll add one more little nuance here to bring it back to our earlier discussion. Previously, really, you were limited to people who could afford to buy a camera, or the video cameras were super expensive early on, develop that and so on and so forth. If you think about like the early days of the camera, like really only, the wealthy were able to use it. Today, people with little income have access to phones that do have cameras on them. And that's been, at least in the United States, and that's been a pretty large shift. It just goes to show you that as technology goes forward, one of the major things that also changes alongside that is accessibility to small business or average Joe. And it's not limited to the elite. So that in many ways is pretty exciting about AI, because it is going to bring more and more accessibility to everyone and anyone, which, going back to my thesis, will yield more creativity, right? It'll empower more people to be creative because they have access to things that allow them to be creative.
And it's personalizing the experience. And I think it's important to kind of talk about how AI is really driving personalization and shaping the future of advertising. We all know brands want to get the right eyeballs in on their content. And what are the benefits for both brands having this and consumers?
Yeah, on the consumer side, there's various different ways to think about the benefits. One is just an overall better brand marketing experience. When content is generic, it's boring, and that's why the skip button exists. When content is customized and personalized, it can in fact be engaging. It might even be enriching. And I mean, I could give like a million examples, but just to provide one, I was recently in market for AstroTurf in my yard. And I don't know, AstroTurf is kind of a tough one. It's going to look fake. It has a look in the lighting. And I saw a video, a UGC video from a dad. And this is like a big purchase to make online, to like not see for yourself. But I saw a video from a dad, and he showed his before and afters, and he explained his consideration, some of the spot on same considerations that I had about sunlight and so on and so forth. And the after photo of him running on the turf with his kids, it just completely sold me. Now, why did it sell me? So you could argue it sold me because of the price. You could argue it sold me because of the product. It sold me because the personalized content was so spot on to what I was experiencing that it was just uncanny, right? And in some ways you can say that was the unicorn, but the reality is it's really not that far-fetched, right? There's a certain percentage of people that are buying AstroTurf because there are parents, right? There's a percentage that they just want to have a greener yard. There's a percentage because of pets and odors, right? Like there's a percentage because grass doesn't grow and it's a shady area, right? So like if I am selling AstroTurf and there's shade, I'm gonna have a whole different narrative than AstroTurf where there's a lot of sunlight and the guy's worried about the floor being hot. I bring this up because for the consumer to get a better message, it is an overall better brand experience. They want to watch that video. For the brand, it's a better experience because they are actually engaging with their customer. So that, that's one perspective. The other thing I will add that isn't talked about enough, but I believe is like just simple logic is more creative via AI, which solves a lot of the manual challenges around making large volumes of creative, empowers brands to have more shots to goal. You're not going to hit the home run on every app, but if you have many shots to goal, you just increase the statistical probability of creating an ad in which you will actually resonate with your end consumer. And that's a luxury that didn't exist yesterday. And one more lens is the lens of the creator. If I'm a creator, I'm tasked with making engaging content. AI can only help make me better at that. It can only help make me smarter, educating me on trends, brainstorming with me on suggestions based on data, analyzing my creative and making recommendations based on what works best on different platforms. I mean, this is like a glorified personal assistant for someone who is creating content. And in many ways, that is a gift.
Well, I mean, speaking of these brands and kind of getting into the business side of, in terms of our audience, but solutions and those who are looking, saying, hey, this is something that we definitely need to invest in. Not only because everybody is, but because we want to get ahead of the game and do it right. So, David, I'd love to talk a little bit about the importance of an innovative AI strategy and the solutions that are delivering personalized advertising experiences. How how can they be a game changer for marketing strategies, for brands who are looking seriously into these solutions?
Yeah, there's a lot of good strategies here. I will tell you the rainbow that I see, and then my recommendation. The rainbow I see starts from folks who say we're going to hire an AI specialist in-house, and we're going to do all things AI. And that is somewhat common that I see it, especially across larger organizations, as what I want to argue is a little bit of like checking a box. Oh, we hired someone. Whether or not it's effective is I think something that could be debated. And
Mm.
then completely on the other side of the spectrum is just outsourcing and saying, I don't know, we don't know anything about AI. Let's just hire a vendor and they'll tell us what to do. And that also can be debated in terms of its effectiveness. My personal recommendation in any category, whether it's AI or anything else, where there's a high velocity of innovation and the speed is very, very fast, and your company is not specifically focused on that, right? You're focused on making soap, you're not focused on AI, to partner with companies that are focused in this space and be a part of their product roadmap. This nuance is the difference. Not just partnering like, here's a $500,000, let's do some collaboration. Partnering with, I am interested in this space and I am willing as a brand to invest time, money, and resources. So I want to bring my marketing team in to your product roadmap discussion, which means picking vendors that make sense based on whatever it is that your goals are, and working with them alongside them to build their AI products for your needs. And the reason why this is super crucial and advantageous in AI is that the models are being trained in their infancy. So if you train the model in its infancy based on your needs, you have a significant advantage over your competitors who might start training models 3 years later. And 3 years later in this universe can be equated to 30 years. So there is a significant advantage, not just in hiring someone to be your AI person or outsourcing it, but collaborating deeply for tools to be built specifically for your brand's wants and needs that will give you a competitive advantage in 2027, 2028.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think it's all about finding the right partners that are going to put you ahead. And speaking of, I know you speak about this a lot, David, but in terms of ROI, I think it's important to know how brands can really gauge the success of their AI driven marketing efforts. So what metrics can be used to really indicate that this is really having an impact?
Okay, great. I would say firsthand experience ROI shifts that I have witnessed are brands who are embracing AI applications to creative and empowering both the creator and the post-production funnels using AI to expand the volume of assets being used in distribution. And solely through larger volume, larger survey sample equals more shots to goal, brands are experiencing a significantly better ROI than just buying media or distributing in on their website or wherever it may be in e-commerce funnels using one or two pieces of creative. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's are there is there any specific success story or case study, if you will, and it could be brief, but that you've seen this in action?
100%. And look, my agenda is not to do a shameless plug for social native, but I will provide
Do it.
just like as on an example basis. And if anybody listening wants to reach out to me to brainstorm, it would be my pleasure. To collaborate, obviously, would be my honor. But my goal here is really to help further push all of us to think and expand our minds to what is possible through AI. And in many ways, that has become the North Star of Social Native as an organization. We are focused on building tooling and collaborating with various different players in the AI space to provide tooling to the creator community that can be used for them to build high performing creative. That word high performing is like really, there's a lot of depth to that word, which means educating them on what aspects of creative produce performance for customers. A lot of the creators, they're not well versed in the word high performing. Their focus is just to make creative. So we've been building out more tooling to help scale, kind of rate and score and advise them on what different attributes help in the performance of creative. And then outside of that, various other tools to help that community. But really on the customer side, and I promise to follow up with a real example, empowering them with that library so that when they go out into distribution, they have various options to hit goal. And one simple example, imagine a very large beauty company. And they are, let's say they're selling lipstick and they're targeting women to buy lipstick. And they historically activate female creators to make content around the advantage of that lipstick. Well, what happens if through the tooling, one of the versions of content that comes back when we take a creator's piece of content and now we use AI to make various different versions of it? What if one of those versions is a man doing a tutorial on lipstick? So you could argue, David, it's not on brand. You could argue, David, that's not my target demographic. There's like various different arguments that we made. My argument in this specific customer use case is, why don't we just test it? Like you have a bunch of creative, just throw it out there. And shockingly, this creative is one of the best performing pieces of creative. I think it brought people to, it captured their attention. The video content was highly engaging and very informative. And And whether you agree with the strategy or not, I think the underlying strategy is very much the home run, which is test all creative.
Mhm.
Like, right, like create things that are maybe not within your guidelines or what you have defined as what your customer wants. Allow there to be a spectrum, and then the real decision maker is the end customer. So if you're buying media, as my example, and you're historically paying a $10 CPM, but on this one piece of creative, you're paying a $5 CPM, that has such a significant impact on a brand. I mean, to be able to get more bang for your buck in media spend is a big KPI for a lot of folks on the marketing side. Engaging content is required to do that. How do you make engaging content? This is a big question mark. So if you allow AI to expand the creative and give you various options, and you buy media against it, you have a higher probability of finding your winners.
Well, I think it's stories like that that help drive transformation in this area, and it's only gonna increase. So, David, let's I want to end with some fun stuff about we'll talk trends and kind of key topic areas that everyone's kind of talking about these days. But kind of want to hear from you about some emerging trends and innovations that are really here at the intersection of AI and brand marketing, kind of everything scope of what we've been talking about in this conversation. Uh, that you find most promising, and maybe kind of stepping into the future of where you could take this probably anyway, but where this is going and the impact that it's going to have for brands, in 4 or 5 years, because things are going to change so fast.
Yeah, I love that question. I'd say probably like the easiest, as in what's available to you today. You're available today to use copy AI. Create various different forms of your advertising copy. Don't just assume that what worked for you last year will work for you this year with like a couple of shifts of adjectives. Like you are allowed to make 50 different versions of the same caption and really test them out. And the barrier to entry on that is zero. So that I would say is like a low hanging fruit of today that isn't necessarily being adopted as as it could be, and it's just so easy. Case in point, not even an advertisement. Let's say you want to send an email internally. You can use AI and say, "Hey, I want to send this email internally. This is my goal. What's your recommendation?" And that type of optimization of copy is so readily available. And I would encourage everyone to embrace that as soon as possible to give them a leading competitive edge. One thing about competitive edge is it's not a competitive edge when everyone starts using it. It's a competitive edge when you start using it before everyone else. And then looking forward, I do believe that not too far in the distant future, brand marketers will be able to work directly with an AI platform very specific to their brand, very specific to their customer data, and actually request for assets and audience targeting strategy and platform strategy, and get that from AI. So it's not to say that we don't need humans for strategy. We do, but ultimately there is a lot of data computing that goes into strategy development. And the more you can customize your AI, the better it can be for you. So for example, you might be able to come to an AI platform and say, "Hey, my soap sales are down in Oregon. What's your recommendation?" And get spit out that, I recommend we use TikTok to increase our sales in that local region for this and this reason. And I recommend these 5 creators to go out and make the content for us because historically they've done a good job. And if we use that content specifically in this region, we should see an increase in ROI within the next 60 days. That is a very reasonable development of AI in time.
That's great. And I do want to end and give the opportunity to our audience, specifically in the Millennium Alliance realm of these executives who are leading these great brands and are finding solutions, or at least searching for solutions that could really help them. And I know social native is playing such a key role in this industry to help advance this. But for brands that are really just beginning to explore AI in their marketing. They don't want to fall behind, and they need advice. What key advice would you offer them, David, to really maximize their potential in harnessing AI and this technology moving forward?
I would say if we're really starting early, like if we're at the what does AI stand for phase, I would say it would behoove you to schedule meetings, whether, first of all, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, but myself and anyone else who's putting a lot of energy in AI for just coffee, for brainstorm, really for education. There isn't enough literature out there for you. It's too early. There isn't an online course out for you. It's too early. Everyone is learning as they go. Uh, Put time in your calendar every Friday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. For learning, for education, for introductory phone calls to better understand what is and isn't possible. I say that as my guidance because anything that I might share now, by the time someone listens to this recording, it will likely shift. And I have seen that myself. Like I have worked on projects where 3 months later, I can't believe how much it's improved because I had almost written it off. So that is the space, which means you need to stay on the pulse. You can argue that I don't have the time. I will argue back to you that you don't have a choice. It is of the utmost importance that you are well versed and you are in a position to take advantage and apply across your organization so that in the years to come, you will be competitive. Um, it doesn't mean that in the years to come, if you don't embrace AI, there's something that will affect your business negatively. It's not what I mean. I just mean that those who embrace it will have a competitive advantage tomorrow. And if you want to be someone that has a competitive advantage, you really want to be there at the beginning.
It's fantastic advice, David. And I think that's exactly what brands need to hear because we are at the forefront. There's so much to learn, and there's so much to look forward to. So I thank you for taking the time to discuss AI, especially within the marketing and brand marketing realm, because this is going to have a big impact, especially in the future, but how necessary it is to allow AI to work with you and how it's going to amplify creativity. It's been a pleasure discussing with all of this with you, David, and on our audience side, our marketing memberships. Please reach out to David to talk AI and use these conversations as leverage to learn. So I want to thank our guest, David Shadpour, the CEO at Social Native. Thank you, David. This has been a great conversation and hope you join the podcast in the future.
Thank you, Connor.